Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm your host. And today we will continue with our series of episodes called The Haunted Awakening. This is the second episode. Today we'll be reading the story called The Midnight Gardener. So if you're ready, let's begin. The house on Elm Street was a rare gem, a Victorian relic with creaking charm, a porch swing that whispered of forgotten summers, and a garden that looked like it had been plucked from a storybook or a nightmare. Sarah and her husband, Ben, were instantly enchanted, especially by the wild, tangled garden sprawling behind the house. To Sarah, a lover of heirloom roses and antique beauty, it was a sleeping kingdom waiting to bloom, but the garden was already awake. The soil was unnaturally dark black as ash, and the plants she introduced seemed to feed on something more than water and sunlight. A dying rose bush she'd nearly uprooted erupted overnight into blood-red blossoms, pulsing with color. Her petunias grew monstrous, their petals a violent shade of purple that seemed to shimmer with menace. Ben joked that she had magic fingers. Sarah smiled, but unease crept beneath her skin. The garden thrummed with a low, persistent energy, and at night the wind carried whispers soft, unintelligible, yet intimate. They didn't speak to her mind, they spoke to her bones. One evening, while tending a patch of lily, her trowel struck something solid. She unearthed a small, smooth tombstone unmarked, ancient, and cold as ice. That night, sleep betrayed her. In her dream, she was tangled in the garden's roots, their tendrils piercing her skin, drawing her down into the earth. The whispers were no longer gentle, they were screams, human, endless. Driven by dread, Sarah began to dig into the house's past. She found the name Elara recluse, a rumored witch, a woman who could make anything grow. Even things that shouldn't. Elara had no kin, no mourners, and no known grave. Town records hinted at disappearances pets, then people all last seen near the house. All swallowed by the garden, the dreams worsened. Sarah woke with soil under her nails, dirt smeared across her skin. Her indoor plants began to rot, their leaves curling inward like dying hands. It was as if the house itself was bleeding life into the garden, into Elara's legacy. Then came the storm. Rain lashed the windows, thunder shook the walls, but the garden danced. The plants writhed in the wind, their leaves moving in a fevered rhythm. Lightning split the sky, and Sarah saw them. Figures, pale, translucent, twisted in agony. Faces trapped within the stalks and roots of her beloved plants. The garden wasn't a sanctuary, it was a graveyard. And the plants were its headstones, the whispers sharpened into a single, chilling command: feed us. Elara's curse had seeped beyond the soil. Black roots slithered through the floorboards, searching, hungering. Sarah understood then she hadn't awakened the dead. She had awakened the garden, and now it wanted her. Not as a gardener, as its next bloom. A chill wind slithered through the overgrown garden, rustling the leaves of 1,000 unseen eyes watching. Sarah stood frozen, her hands outstretched as if to ward off an unseen blow. Her breaths came in ragged gasps, echoing the frantic beating of her heart. The whispers had become a roar, the garden demanded, and she knew what it wanted. It didn't want flowers or fertilizer. It craved something far more potent, something the soil could never nourish, human life force. The realization hit her like a physical blow, stealing the breath from her lungs. The garden wasn't just a graveyard, it was a trap. And she, unknowingly, had become its latest victim. As if summoned by her thoughts, a gnarled hand burst from the earth, its fingers tipped with long, sharp nails that scraped against the stone path. More hands clawed their way up, followed by shriveled, skeletal arms. Then a face emerged, pale and gaunt, its eyes hollow sockets staring sightlessly above. Sarah screamed, a raw, primal sound that tore from the depths of her being. She scrambled back, her foot catching on a root that had wormed its way across the path. She fell, scraping her palm on the unforgiving stone. But the pain was a blessing, anchoring her to reality. With newfound determination, she scrambled to her feet and ran, crashing through the undergrowth, branches tearing at her clothes, thorns ripping into her skin. She didn't dare look back. She didn't need to. The whispers had become a cacophony, their voices a chorus of torment and anticipation. Behind her, the risen dead stirred in their earthen slumber, drawn to her like moths to a flickering flame. Their hunger mirrored in their vacant eyes. In the distance, the house loomed, its silhouette a jagged slash against the bruised twilight sky. Hope surged through Sarah. The garden might be the source of this horror, but the house held the key to stopping it. If she could find a way inside, maybe she could lock the garden's horrors away. Maybe she could starve the whispers back into the earth. Bursting through the front door, she gasped. The interior was as still and silent as a tomb. Dust motes danced in the slanting rays of the setting sun, illuminating the faded grandeur of the rooms. A grand staircase swept upwards, its banisters intricately carved, yet tarnished with age. Each step creaked a lament, a dirge for the house's forgotten glory. Then she heard it, a soft, deliberate footstep on the stairs. Sarah whirled around, her heart pounding a tattoo against her ribs. But there was nothing there. Had she imagined it? Or was the house playing host not just to its slumbering dead, but to living horrors as well? Driven by a desperate hope, Sarah began to search, room by room, floor by floor, for anything that could help her, for anything that could stop the whispers that clawed at her sanity. In the attic, she found an old trunk tucked beneath a broken window. With trembling hands, she lifted the heavy lid. Inside, nestled in layers of yellowed tissue, lay a collection of strange and beautiful objects. There were dried herbs bundled with faded ribbons, bottles filled with murky liquids and sealed with wax, and strange, unreadable symbols carved into bone and wood. Amongst these relics of a bygone era, Sarah discovered an old leather-bound journal. Its pages, brittle with age, contained Elara's spidery script detailing her life, her trials, her triumphs, and her deepest fears. As Sarah delved deeper into Elara's world, she learned of a love so profound it defied the boundaries of life and death. Elara had loved a man named Thomas, a love that had been her solace, her strength, and her undoing. But Thomas had died, leaving Elara bereft and broken. In her grief, she had turned to the forbidden arts, seeking a way to bring him back to her. But her magic, potent though it was, could only do so much. She couldn't raise him from the dead, but she could keep his essence alive. So she made a pact with the earth, binding her life force to the garden, ensuring that he would live on through the whispering roots and blooming flowers. And then the garden grew to powerful, its hunger insatiable. It craved more than just Elara's life force. It wanted hers and all those who dared to enter its domain. Sarah, armed with this knowledge, realized that to break the curse, she would have to sever the connection between Elara and the garden, a connection forged in the fires of a love that refused to die. Armed with this knowledge, Sarah prepared to break the cycle of death and despair that had taken root in Elara's garden. She descended into the garden, back to where it all began. The air grew thick and heavy, the whispers reaching a crescendo as they sensed her return. Sarah knelt before the ancient unmarked tombstone, Elara's final resting place. With tears streaming down her face, she began to sing. It wasn't a song of sorrow or despair, but a melody of hope, of life, and of love enduring beyond the veil of death. As her voice echoed through the garden, the whispers faltered. The risen dead, drawn to her song, began to stir. The melody wove its way into their spectral forms, calming their tormented souls, and then a miracle. The garden began to bloom, not with monstrous purple petunias or blood-red roses, but with delicate white lily and gentle bluebells. The air, thick with sorrow, slowly cleared, replaced by the sweet scent of blooming flowers. One by one, the figures released from Elara's garden's grasp walked away from Sarah, their forms fading with each step until they were nothing but wisps of memory on the wind. The garden, once a prison, became a sanctuary, a place of peace and remembrance. As the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, Sarah emerged from the garden, her steps lighter, her heart brimming with a newfound lightness. The whispers were gone, replaced by the gentle murmur of a morning breeze. She had freed Elara and herself from the clutches of a love-turned-obsession, proving that sometimes the greatest love story is the one that knows when to end. If you liked the video, please support us by subscribing to the channel, liking it, and clicking the bell icon to receive notifications about new videos. And don't forget to leave us a comment with your opinion about the story. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.